I was 32 years old when I saw my father gave the deed to my brother. Apartment. Not just any flat. My flat, the one I'd been remodeling for 5 years, my money, and my own hands. The person I'd prevented from going into foreclosure with $30,000 of my life savings. My parents promised to be mine one day. And my twin was receiving it as a gift there. Connor's brother at his engagement celebration, as if it had never belonged to me. The room erupted in cheers as I stood, a half-empty frozen glass of champagne shaking in my palm, understanding that in the eyes of my family, I had always been and would constantly be only an afterthought. I'm Avery, and what I'm going to tell you isn't merely a tale of an apartment. It's about learning how one can push someone so far before they at last push back. Since our first, Connor and I may have had similar memories. Identical DNA, identical birthday, and the same house as children, but we lived in entirely distinct universes when it come to our parents' love. I continue to recall my 10th birthday, as Connor got a brand new, sparkling bike with his name on it. The frame was custom painted, and I received a useful collection of instructional books from the area for clearance. When he brought, my parents would give me home B- grades. Enjoy a meal out to celebrate. When I created, they would nod and say, "The honor roll," Avery said. "That's nice, Avery," and return to whatever it was that Connor did. The foundation was engraved with a message of my early years. Connor was important. I was only there. I had established a respectable for myself, even though I'm carrying the unseen burden of being inferior cherished child. I worked in marketing. Downtown, at which I excelled. I had a small apartment a long way from the office that consumed commuting hours of my day. Additionally, I had the persistent, silent hope that one day my parents may truly perceive me as deserving of the same affection they showed me my brother. At that point, my parents created what appeared to be their first real point at me. They gave me their apartment, not precisely offered, that is. They requested that I rent it at 3/4 of the going rate. The location had belonged to the grandmother of my dad, and years ago he had inherited it. "Avery," my mother said, "we've been thinking," while one of our infrequent family meals, her voice with the tone she employed when she believed she was being giving. "You may reside in Grandma's former home. Just take out 3/4 of what you would pay. Any place else in the area?" In my chest, hope flashed. Was this, at last, it? Some acknowledgement of my existence, my requirements. In my family? I ought to have known better. There were conditions linked to everything. The apartment was in the ideal location. My office is within walking distance. However, as soon as I entered, my stomach fell. The ground crumpled under my feet, encased in carpet from decades ago that, with every step, dust puffs were emitted. The walls had a sickly yellow paint job. It gave everything a sickly appearance. The tiles in the bathroom were disintegrating. The kitchen is absent like bad teeth, appeared to be intact from the 1970s, fully furnished with appliances that produced alarming sounds when activated. In that musty living room, I felt the well-known burden of disappointment. This was not a present. It was an afterthought, a place they didn't care enough to keep up. Currently being shown as kindness, however, I took it anyhow. The place was impeccable, and deep within me lives that needy kid who was still looking for acceptance. The next 5 years were spent change, not only of me, but of the apartment. Each paycheck, I would budget money for upgrades. I applied paint on those whitish walls using warm hues that created a feeling of living. I destroyed that disgusting carpet using my personally setting aside 6 months to put in gorgeous laminate flooring. All through. The plumbing was terrible. Awaiting action. Half of the pipe's water damage seeping in after leaking like a sickness on the walls. I employed a professional who gave a headshake in incredulity. "You're fortunate to have discovered this when you did," he informed me. 1 more year, and there would have been structural damage. Disastrous. The appliances broke down, one by one. My new flooring were flooded by the dishwasher. During a heat wave, the refrigerator died, making me discard everything within. The old stove warmed shot erratically and sporadically in relation to sparks. I swapped them all out, observing the growth of my credit card statements for every purchase that is required. I even had every electrical outlet was changed when I was told by an electrician about the older ones. Were an impending fire threat. Every upgrade, every fix, I took one item out of my pocket. My parents would visit from time to time for what my father enjoyed calling to inquire about their financial commitment. They would stroll about, nodding in agreement with all the work I'd finished. "You're actually making this place better," my mother would say, "Come up nice," while running her the recently painted walls with a hand. "It will have even greater value when you're finished." The work didn't bother me. In fact, I thought it was fantastic. For the first time, I had something in my life that felt similar to mine. Despite the fact that I was paying rent. Despite the fact that in theory it owned by my parents. And I was making a house. I was creating something lovely. With my own hands. A year or so ago, however, everything altered. I was 31 and comfortable with my routine. Feeling rather content with my existence. I had my independence, my apartment, and my work. To that point, my parents arrived to my door with solemn faces that made before they even spoke, their stomachs clenched. My father stated, "Avery, we need to talk," as they took a seat on my couch, which I'd purchased and paid for. His expression conveyed the burden of negative news. "What's up?" I inquired, but something deep within was, "I'm already being warned to prepare for impact. We're having issues with our mortgage." "This place," my mother replied in a sad voice, in what appeared to be real distress, "we are unable to pay the bank the $30,000 we owe them. The bank is threatening to foreclose." My coffee mug started to slide a little in my hands. "What exactly do you want me to do?" "We need the $30,000 from you," my father stated. His comment struck me like a blow to the body. Blow. We are aware that it is a lot, but consider as a financial commitment. One day, you will own this flat. In any case, I reiterated, will be mine. Mine no more than a whisper. Naturally. As she reached out to give me a squeeze, my mother remarked hand with a tenderness that is strange. "You are our daughter. We will not give you nothing. Connor will receive when we're not there, and you'll obtain this flat. You've already worked so hard on it." I had saved up some money over the years of living and working in a comparatively inexpensively. I had about $30,000, but if it implied that I will someday own the property, I had been making improvements and renovations for years. It appeared to be a sensible investment. "You said you would get this apartment." I had to hear if it would be mine. It again. My dad said, "Absolutely," stated, staring me in the eye, with a genuineness I don't often see directed. "We're not going to forget," I said, "all that you have done for this location. I did it because you've made it your home." Transferred $30,000. Almost all of which I have to reimburse my parents for their mortgage debt. I had faith in them. Entirely. After all, they were my parents. Why? Would they tell me a falsehood? Is this significant? After then, everything went on as usual. I continued residing in the flat, continued to paying rent, continued to maintain and making improvements. My folks never brought up the money once more, and I figured that indicated that everything had been resolved. I would eventually own the apartment, and I had made a significant investment in it previously. In any case, it felt like mine. Connor called me at work 2 weeks ago. I was completing some documents when my phone rang. I could sound there was instant excitement in his voice. "Hey Avery, I've got some great news." I was practically bouncing through, he claimed. "Claire and I are getting on the phone, involved. The engagement celebration is scheduled for 2 weeks spent with her folks. You're invited, of course." Connor's girlfriend was Claire. I had known her for around 2 years. We'd attended the same high school. Jaylee was intelligent, humorous, grounded, and a truly decent individual. "Connor, that's fantastic." I meant what I said. In spite of I honestly share everything with my folks, loved my brother. "Claire is fantastic. You two are a match made in heaven. It's very nice to hear you, sis, thank you. Mom and Dad are ecstatic when you say that." And Kang about it. They were, of course. The golden lad was marrying a kind girl from a decent household. This was most likely the finest news they'd received over all year. The engagement celebration took place at the lovely suburban home of Claire's parents, 30 minutes or so from the city center. When I got there, the location was already starting with roughly 40 individuals. Claire's relatives, former high school pals, relatives I knew from a variety of family get-togethers throughout the years. Avery Claire came running to me the moment I entered, beaming with joy, saying, I'm very happy you could attend. Congratulations. I hugged her tightly and murmured, I'm so pleased for Connor and you. The gathering was going smoothly. People were giggling, consuming food, drinking, and telling tales about the contented pair. In fact, I was enjoying myself and catching up with old friends, and taking pleasure in the festivities. Then, approximately 1 hour into the celebration, my father gave a vigorous clearing of his throat and demanded the attention of all. Pardon me? Everyone, including me, he added, his voice carrying throughout the space. If I could hold your interest for a little instant. The room fell silent, and everyone's eyes. I looked at my dad. He stood in, my mother in the middle of the living room next to him, both of them giddy with pride. Diane and I wanted to spend some time together to express our pride in our son Connor, and my father went on. He's always been such a great boy, and witnessing his happiness, Claire, simply warms our hearts with joy. People muttered that they agreed, nodding and grinning. This was nice, I thought. Idea, though a bit nostalgic, pleasant. We have an extremely important engagement, present for Connor, my father uttered, reaching inside the pocket of his jacket. Something that demonstrates our love for him and how we are pleased with the guy he has grown into, retrieved an envelope and gave it to Connor. My brother's expression brightened, yet he didn't appear shocked. In fact, he appeared to have been anticipating this. Son, go ahead, get it open. Bought up. Connor took the envelope out and took out some formal attire. Records. He gave them a cursory glance before looking up at our parents, grinning broadly. He remarked, Mom, Dad, this is incredible. His voice was full with passion. Many thanks. It's unbelievable that you're doing this. What is it? Someone yelled from the crowd. My mother came forward, almost brimming with pride. It's the deed to a downtown apartment, the one owned by Connor's sister, been residing in over the previous several years. Connor and Claire will get it as a wedding present. The room burst into kudos and cheers. Individuals were cheering and yelling their endorsement, expressing to Connor how fortunate he wonderful to have parents that were so giving. I thought I had been struck in the stomach. My eyes twitched, the corner's darkness while I gasped for air. I had to cling on a chair's back in order to steadying myself. The apartment. My flat. The one for which I had been paying rent for 5 years. The one I had totally remodeled using my own funds. The one I had paid, to prevent foreclosure, $30,000, is simply a year prior. My parents, promised, will one day belong to me. Connor is getting it from us. This is really a fantastic present, Claire said, examining the records in Connor's hands. We are really appreciative. We have been discussing locating our own location, and this is ideal. Connor deserves it, my father yelled, ensuring that everyone could hear. He's marrying, soon to begin a family, hopefully. Claire and he require a separate location to construct their life together. I had a peek at my parents' fervent desire to capture their eye, anticipating some sort of an apology or an explanation. However, when they noticed my gaze, they simply grinned, and this was the most natural way to shrug. Something in the globe. At that point, my aunt, my mother's sister, Barbara, spoke out from across the room. Wait a minute, she stated, her tone piercing the festivities. How about Avery? She has been residing in the apartment, right? For years? Silence fell in the room. Everyone looked at me first, then at my parents. My face was burning with humiliation, but I was unable to go past it. The tightness in my throat. My father shrugged. Informally. Avery is going to have to go. Naturally. She has been living there for 5 years. 5 years. That seems generous to me. Typhoid dies sufficient. My mother added that she is an adult. She can locate a space of her own. There are several rental flats available in this city. I could have informed everyone about the truth at that very moment. I could have got to my feet and declared that I hadn't lived there for free, just as it sounded like parents. I could have clarified that I made rent payments each 1 month, during which I had renovated the whole establishment using my own funds, that I'd provided them with $30,000 only a year ago to prevent the foreclosure of that apartment. However, I didn't. A lifetime of conditioning. To be quiet and avoid creating a stir kept me immobilized. I spent another half hour sitting there, observing my brother's fiancée, congratulate them on their fantastic present, observing my parents, sulking in appreciation for your generosity individuals. At last, I was unable to handle it. No longer. Silently, I stood up, took my pocketbook, and left Claire's parents' home. No one even gave me a glance. Departing. The journey back to the apartment, no, it's no longer my apartment. The street lights were a haze, smudged by weeping. I wouldn't admit. When I poured a big glass for myself when I arrived home. Sat on my couch and drank some wine, the sofa I purchased using my own funds, gazing at the walls, myself. Everything in years of my life were symbolized by this location. My labor, my money. Connor was now simply going to give him everything on a platter of silver. At that point, my text message rang on the phone from Connor. Leave right now. You've got 2 days. 2 days, not even a week, not even a dialogue. A chilly text message telling me to leave of the house I had built. I gazed at the phrases for an extended period of time, feeling something changed within me. The pain and shock was still present, but it was increasing. Something new emerged through them, and unknown. Fury, clarifying and white-hot. They believed they could simply toss me out like trash. They believed they may embarrass me and take $30,000 from me, kick me in front of everybody, leaving with 2 days' notice. However, this is the tendency to push someone too far. They eventually push back. I gave my Olivia. A friend who had previously been mine was among the few since college. Those who were aware of my family's struggles might be. I need a favor, Olivia, I said, attempting to maintain a steady voice. Can I spend some time with you? I must locate a new residence. Of certainly. But what took place? Are you all right? Later, I will explain. All I need is a place to spend a few days while I work things out. In fact, you know what? Ryan, my brother, relocated to Europe for a job last month. His residence is sitting vacantly. You could remain there as long as necessary. Just pay, no rent. The utilities. I nearly burst into tears of relief. I hung up and sat there contemplating. Regarding the next course of action. Then a thought began to take shape in my head. I could play the games my parents wanted to play. Play games as well. I contacted the service provider and inquired them to visit first thing in the morning. Good morning. I need you to unplug and take out every appliance. I informed them. The refrigerator, the dishwasher, the stove, all of it. Additionally, I need you to take out all the plumbing and electrical outlets fixtures. The phone guy sounded perplexed. That's going to depart the place, ma'am. Rather naked. That's precisely what I desire, I uttered, feeling a surge of voice. I purchased everything with mine, so I'm taking them with me. Me. The crew arrived the following day. They started working early and unplugged the dishwasher, removed the stove and refrigerator, removed all of the electrical outlets. I had put in and taken out the new bathroom, fixtures, even stealing the pleasant light fixtures I purchased to swap for the outdated one. However, the resistance piece, the laminate floors, it took the longest. They have to raise it gradually. However, as I had saved the original receipt, I was fully aware of the price I had paid for it. I owned a single plank. Observing them. It was strange to strip the house down. Healing. Every time they took something away, I felt a small portion of my power coming back. Wasn't merely small-time retaliation, it was reclamation. Regaining what I was entitled to. I made a call to a moving firm that night. They arrived and loaded up every one of my furnishings, every appliance, every materials for flooring, everything. Olivia presented the keys to me at Ryan's place, and we moved everything overnight. After we finished, I took the keys to your flat and placed them in an envelope. I penned a little message. As requested, the unit has been relocated out. Presently. I dispatched it via courier to my home of my parents. The following morning, Mayad tuplulikis bakad. At 7 in the morning, the phone began to ring. Masrach was my mother, followed by my father and Connor. Phoning repeatedly, but I ignored it. Then the text messages went to voicemail. Began entering. You had no authority to Tumand. We're going to call the cops, so do that. You cannot simply ruin our property. Finally, you will pay for this. I responded at around midday when my mother Avery called and said, What the devil did you do? When I took her up, she screamed. I said, I moved out like you asked, calmly. The apartment was ruined by you. Everything was taken by you. The outlets, the flooring, plumbing, it's entirely gutted. I said, I took what was mine. I purchased each of those items with my own cash. I can verify it with the receipts. You're taking revenge. This is so trivial. You may be ours. Taken into custody. Go ahead, I said. Make a police call. Inform them that I stole my own belongings while I left. They will undoubtedly be quite eager to learn how you defrauded me of $30,000, and then gave me 2 days' notice before kicking me out. On the other end of the line, there was quiet. The line, You shouldn't have done it, Avery. At last my mother's voice said this, It's quieter now. Look, we can figure something out. Mikul, talk out. Perhaps that $30,000 might be considered a Connor's wedding present. I was unable to trust what I was hearing. A wedding present. Their goal was to retroactively call that a justification for stealing my money. A present for my sibling. All of you are dishonest. You used me and lied to me, I said. And when it was, you flung me away. Practical. I'm treating you just as you are then. Deserve to be taken care of. Please, Avery. You haven't seen anything, Mom. Not yet. Another surprise is on the horizon. Love for you, I hung up after that. The following, I contacted a tow truck business in the morning. I needed to play one more card. I instructed you to pick up an automobile from this address. Granting them access to my parents' home number. The license plate is a blue Honda Civic, KM 2000 plate. As the legitimate owner, I possess all the documentation to support it. The vehicle was something I had nearly overlooked in all of this chaos. 3 years prior, when my parents began experiencing financial difficulties, they had inquired about borrowing it. Only momentarily as they worked it out. Their state of transportation. 3 years have passed since then. I had purchased a new vehicle and permit them to continue using the Honda. I continued to make insurance payments. Still the legitimate owner of it, but I had essentially handed it to them. One more of my numerous acts of kindness that they'd apparently forgotten. The tow. An hour later, I got a call from a truck driver. I have your car, ma'am. There was an elderly couple who yelled out regarding it, but I demonstrated to them the documentation. There was nothing they could do. Excellent. Bring it to this, I said. Address. 15 minutes after the vehicle pulled up, once more, the phone burst with calls. I did not respond to any of them, yet, the messages were different. You are unable to simply take our automobile. That vehicle is necessary for labor. We lack funds for another vehicle. You're acting like an awful person. I got the best one from my brother. You are a whole, please don't attend my wedding. One of these truly made me chuckle aloud, as if I ever wanted to join them in celebrating once more. After that, I blocked all of their numbers. I had finished hearing their grievances. After 3 weeks, I offered the Honda for sale. It sold and was in excellent shape. $12,000 in a week. I grinned as I deposited that check. After months, for the first time, $12,000. Not quite the $30,000 they had taken from. It was something, but it was me. It was a begin. 2 weeks or so later, I received a call from Claire. I was shocked to learn from her, but my response was, Hey, Claire. Avery, what's up? I need to talk. To you. Is there a place we can meet? We met at a downtown coffee shop. Claire appeared worn out, anxious and uninterested. resembled the radiant soon-to-be bride I'd seen at the engagement celebration. Your folks informed. She told me everything as soon as we discussed what transpired with the apartment. They're holding you responsible for everything, claiming that you're being spiteful and attempting to ruin their family. What did Connor say? Claire's expression grew serious. He was fully in agreement with them. He accused you of being vindictive and greedy. You were merely attempting to cause difficulties as a result of your jealousy of our connection. What were your thoughts on all of that? I was aware, Avery, that you resided in your parents' apartment. I visited you there several times throughout the years, although I was unaware of. You spent $30,000 to keep it safe. Foreclosure. I was unaware that you had completely renovated the location using your own funds, that you'd been making rent payments for years. I said, now you do. I'm unable to wed him. Claire spoke abruptly. I am unable to wed into a household that would take a similar action. Additionally, Connor, the manner in which he discussed you, his own sister, I felt ill from it. Claire, you should decide for yourself on this. Don't allow my circumstances to affect your desires in relation to your life. It's not exactly your... That's how they all deal with situations, she remarked. Dealt with it. Your parents misled you, took from you, then pretended to be you, were the issue, and Connor simply left along with it. He made no attempt to correct it. After a month, my Aunt Barbara informed me over the phone that Claire had terminated the engagement. It was not a wedding. Your dad and Connor is enraged, she continued. They're accusing you of poisoning her against them. They are, of course, declared. Maybe they take accountability for their own deeds. It's been 6 months since then. I'm currently residing in and maintaining Ryan's home cleaning and utility payments. I've been saving a ton of money without paying rent, already placing far enough to cover a down payment by myself. Gear all location. Connor and my parents have attempted to get in touch with me via other family members a couple of occasions, but I've stated that reconciliation is not something I'm interested in. When they made their decision, they to defraud me and tell falsehoods. Created mine. Do I long for a family? Occasionally, however, I don't miss the ongoing sensation of second best. I don't miss being taken advantage of and controlled. Being treated like I don't is something I don't miss. Issue. I consider Connor's fractured engagement as an added benefit. That wasn't what I had planned, but Claire earned it, and I'm not sorry it did. Preferable than getting married into a family of criminals and liars, and Connor earned it. To lose something that was important to him simply as I did. Am I upset? Not at all, no more. Yes, I am disappointed and wounded, by the way. They threw me away with ease, but primarily simply said, I'm glad to be rid of them. They can continue to tell falsehoods and partiality, as well as their games. Now I have to make my own life. I'll see to it that it's an excellent one. I appreciate you listening, and if you enjoyed this tale, spread it to people who may occasionally need to hear that. It's not selfish to defend yourself. It's survival. Remember to leave a comment, and sign up for other stories about discovering your strength when others, those who ought to adore you, become the ones who hurt you the hardest. Keep in mind that family is intended to uplift you rather than bring you down.